Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Lieutenant Stephen Rogers here on the East Coast of the United States of America. Welcome to our program. Tonight we have a lot more information. I have Dave Dolan is on board. He'll be with us in a few minutes. I want to give you first an update on the progress that the citizens of Canada are making with regard to their plea for help and for the world to wake up and realize that what is happening in Canada could very well happen in any country. I particularly want to address the people of the United States of America at this hour. Many of you, I know a few thousand, have told us that you're watching, that you were stunned over the past 2 weeks, not realizing, not knowing what was happening on our northern border. Now, a lot of people have written me and called, I'm talking about Americans now, about our southern border. Folks, we have a problem at the southern border. It's being dealt with to the best of our ability. But what to me is more important, and please hear me out on this. I know we've got problems with the Mexican border. I know that there is a lot of bad people crossing that border, but there's something going north of that border, north of our country, that is indeed a clear and present national security danger to this country, the United States. And what that danger is, it is a Canadian government being led by Justin Trudeau, the Prime Minister, who has embraced, in my view, in the view of millions of people, the ideology of Stalin, Marx, and Lenin. We have warned the American people that this would happen in our country. It is happening. We don't see it yet, but the Canadian people see it. What you're going to hear tonight is just more of the unbelievable things that are going on with reference to how the Trudeau government is attempting to take away every single right that the people have in that country, every single bit of freedom, every single bit of liberty. So for those of you in the United States of America and perhaps around the world, those of you who sit around and say, well, it could never happen here. Well, it's not only happening here, it is truly in black and white and publicly in front of everyone. It's happening in Canada. But the good news is the people in Canada are very, very courageous. They're very smart. They're very intelligent. They're dealing with this in a very effective way. Now, they may not think they're dealing it in an effective way because I understand the media out there is probably bought and sold like a lot of media outlets. But they need to hear this. And now I'm speaking to the people in Canada. You need to hear this. You are being very, very effective in getting your message, not only to the American people here just south of you, but around the world. And I'm going to share with you in a few minutes with David just exactly how effective that is. So let's welcome Dave Dolan, another Canadian patriot who has stand very, very strong of the people, by the people, and for the people. David, thank you for joining me.
Yeah, good to be here. Thank you, Lieutenant Rogers, for your work on
Well,
this.
it's truly teamwork, Dave. I want to get to this point of how effective the Canadian people have been. Now, those of you who are watching and have written letters, if you know your letters and your sharing of these broadcasts, there is where the power is. So we're on the air, but it's you, the people, that have really made this very, very powerful. So, Dave, so powerful that I understand at this point, 4, maybe more, maybe less. Please correct me if I'm wrong. But 4 EU Parliament members have now called Justin Trudeau out for the way he's governing.
Yeah, it's astonishing. If somebody wants to just have a look at it, they just didn't think he had the right to even speak in the House. And I guess he thought he was going to get a standing ovation, and it was just like he got so slammed so badly. And I don't know all of the people, but some of them look familiar. Fellow from Romania, and there's other countries, but they actually came right out. And these are Democrats. These are people that are Democrats, and they're coming out and they're saying you had people that were run over by horses. You had all of these human rights violations. So they called them out on everything, and it was astonishing to see. So I urge people. It's on all over social media. I'd urge people to look that up. The fellow from Croatia, he also, I don't know who he is, but he couldn't get he couldn't say enough about it. It was unbelievable. So that in light of all the things that's happened as far as I mean, people saw the trucker protests, and people have no idea the effectiveness of that. And one of the big things about it was that they were able to raise that $10 million in basically a week. And then I think was a week later or less than a week, they raised like 12.7 million on the Give Send Go. So when they were frozen on the Go Send Me, then they went to Give Send Go. And that's not to mention the amount that was wired to them like by e-transfer. And we talked a bit about that before. But I think that would shock government that this is not people just signing a petition. These are people that are putting their money where their mouth is. This is Canadians saying, I'm going to support this cause of these truckers. And I think there's no party in Canada that can raise that much money in a week. It's impossible. So I think that shocked him, and that was the big thing and why they pressed so hard on the truckers. But I think it was very effective, and the world can see what went on. So from that standpoint, I think it was a win.
Well, it's a big win, and Justin Trudeau is going to be shocked a little bit more in the coming days because now the fact of the matter is that not only our media outlet here, but others around the world, they're picking up on this and they're watching and they're scratching their head saying, "What in the world is going on in Canada?"
Yes,
And now they're finding out. Dave, I tell you, a lot of emails again. They're coming in by the hundreds. There's been a lot of people distressed over. And again, I'm not very well versed in the way your government works, and I'm so thankful to God I got you and others from Canada coming on. But there seems to be a coalition being built between, is it the NDP
yes,
and the
and the
Trudeau
liberals.
government? Would,
Yes,
would, would you explain to, at least for the sake of Americans, let them understand how communism works at the very
sure.
least, how it works? It's yours,
Okay,
Dave.
and this also shows the last time I said I don't know where there is to go when you're at the bottom. So this is a man that called an election a snap election when we were dealing with COVID, and it cost I forget what the number was. I think $600 million to have an election last September the 20th. So he got in with a minority government, and so that means he didn't get the majority that he was hoping to get. So what he's done is just I think it was Tuesday morning we woke up to hear that he met behind closed doors with Jagmeet Singh, who is the leader of the NDP, and he made. We won't call it a coalition government because I don't think he's actually going to be part of the caucus, which is their inner meetings. But they have an understanding, and they call it a supply and confidence, or confidence and supply motion. So basically, they're just saying, or an agreement, I should say. So basically, it's just saying that I won't vote on non-confidence, and I'll put my 25 seats from our NDP with your 100 and whatever 52 seats that you have. So that gives him establishes his majority. So even if the bloc, the independent, the Green, voted with the Conservatives, they still wouldn't have enough votes to defeat any of the motions. And anything can be made into a non-confidence vote, but usually it's budget related. So what he did was he basically got his majority through that means. So if I was voting NDP, I would be really ticked that now all of a sudden I'm effectively a liberal, and you may as well call Jagmeet Singh the he's basically the deputy prime minister.
Um, Dave, we had that situation here in the States, and here's a way that I recommend that the Canadian people deal with this. There's an old saying, cut the snake off at the head and it gets destroyed. Well,
Yes,
we're doing it in reverse here. I'll tell you what we did. Politicians, all they look at is votes, 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 votes. They don't have the vote, they're not going to be in power. So what we did is instead of cutting off the head of the snake, we went after the tail, which is the congressmen and the senators. And we have people like in your country who we voted as Republican conservatives, and they end up voting with the socialists and communists. So we went after them on a local and statewide level in November 22. We're
yes,
going after them on a national level. We wiped them out, folks. In New Jersey, we just destroyed their party. So I recommend, Dave, if this is the way the process is similar, that the people in your country target two or three in an election. I mean, you'll scare the living daylights out of the rest of them, because when the money starts coming in to the candidates of the people's choice and not them, and when the media, the media are like hogs. They look for ratings, and wherever the wind blows, they go. But I believe when the pressure gets to be put on the local politicians, the state reps, the parliamentary members, even two or three, knock them out, folks. Just knock them right out. It'll send a strong message, and it will instill fear. I mean, a real fear into their hearts. Is that the way you could go, Dave?
well, no, I don't think that would work for us because just to give you an understanding of how it works, so the MPs are elected. Receive their nomination within their riding. So once they have that, there really isn't anybody going to be running against them, and there won't be another election. If he gets his way, it'll be 2025, September of 2025. So that wouldn't work because we don't have sort of elections in between like you would have had in this November coming up of 2022. So we don't have that. So we don't have I think to be effective, and I think the encouragement that I would deliver to Canadians would be, write your NDP, write your write your liberals. If we could get some of those liberals to side with the conservatives, because there were some that didn't, they weren't happy with the leadership. I mean, you got to have a look at what's going on in the world and what people are saying about your leader, and you got to really think about, do I want to be associated with this? I mean, some of them don't care if they're going to get elected again, but if you get elected 2 terms, you're going to get your pension. So presumably, I would go after the people that have only got they're newly elected. I would go after them, and I'd think reach out to the NDP and the Liberals, and I think continually like write letters. I don't even think I'm going to do any more emails. I'm going to do letters, so they actually have to count it. They're deleting my emails. If I email them something, I'm sure they just hit delete, but they have to account for every piece of mail that you mail, snail mail. So that's what I'd recommend Canadians do.
Good. That's great. I'm hearing that what they didn't expect was either our broadcast or other social media programs like ours, or even some of the media we have out here. They never expected us to pick up on this story and run with it. I'm hearing that they thought that we in America would be so distracted with the problems we're facing with Russia and Ukraine and the Mexican border that this would be a non-starter. But not only has this become a starter, this has become a mission.
Yes.
And they need to understand, and this is something we're getting out there very clearly. They need to understand that they are now jeopardizing the national security of the United States of America. That is exactly what they're doing. We have heard from and spoken with some senators here from congressional people, and I've got to tell you, they're watching carefully, and a few have come out and been very outspoken regarding Trudeau, including former President Donald Trump.
Yes.
So Trudeau, folks, to give you a word of encouragement, not going to last long. This is a cycle. It's a tough one. It's a tough one. You won't last long. He's a tyrant who's going to go away. Things will be fine. And then another tyrant rise up, and then you'll get rid of them. But good always prevails. Keep in mind that good always prevails. Now, Dave, all right. So I'm glad you told me about the NDP. Now, other issues that the Canadian people have brought to my attention. Those of you from America and other free lands of liberty and opportunity, listen up, because this could very well affect us. There's a bill called C10, I believe it was C11. It's about media censorship. I mean, are they actually, the government there actually looking to control and censor the media? But here's the killer here. It talks about the elimination of alternative media. I mean, they're talking about a complete control of every bit of media, including social media, coming to your country.
So firstly, I'm not a politician, I'm not a parliamentarian, and I don't play one on TV. But I would just like to say that I have reviewed some of the bills, and that one in particular that you're talking about, C10, was kicked out in the last summer. So it's now C11, which looks like it's been regurgitated back onto the table. So I think it's first reading or something to that effect. But it's 66 pages, and if you read through it, what the essence is, so we have the CRTC, and that's our regulating for television, radio and television. So they would like to put social media, internet, streaming internet, in with the under the regulation of CRTC, because right now it was never, when that bill was written originally, it never included internet. So now they're trying to change with the times, and absolutely the discussions that we're having right now, they just pull a plug on that because it doesn't meet what they wouldn't like us talking about what we're talking about. So absolutely there'd be censorship. And it's so that bill C11 is definitely troubling, and I would urge Canadians, take a few minutes each day and go to parle.ca. Just look at what they're trying to do and see where it's at. First reading, second reading, is it in the Senate, is it in the House? Have a look at what they're trying to do and look at the language, because some of them are pretty concerning. I mean, some of them are ridiculous. One is environmental racism. What the heck is environmental racism? Like the money that they spend on such things like that, just rubbish. But they also have one about hate speech. It's not so much hate speech. It's more like things like, for example, uh, Ku Klux Klan gear, Confederate flags, anything that would be uniform, something from 1861 to 1865. It says in the from 1861 to 1865, it says uniforms, and like that's before we were even a country. We became a country in 1867. It's ridiculous. So, and what does the Ku Klux Klan or a Confederate flag have to do with Canadians? Really, that means nothing to us. We don't even know what that is unless you're an American history buff. You wouldn't know about a Confederate flag. So that and a Nazi symbol, that sort of thing. But it could be as simple as, for example, I had a sign up at the end of my driveway on the highway that I supported the trucker convoy. well, if they're considered hate speech, and if I'm considered a terrorist for giving them money, which this is what he was asserting. So then, could they extend it to say, okay, Dave's going to he's going to a rally, he's got hate speech because he's got a sign on there that he supports the truckers. So how can you interpret something like that?
Yeah, I have it. I have it right here. It says that the hate speech bill will include pre-crime,
Pre-crime.
not even
Yeah,
commission of a crime, but
pre-crime.
pre-crime,
Yeah, yeah,
and the ability to be taken into custody for something you haven't said.
yeah,
So the thought police. I mean, this comes right out of a
yeah.
communist playbook. Now, Dave, the fact that the government's going down this road, all right, obviously it's complete and total control over the people. We do have, by the way, folks, I'm not going to talk about it at length at all. I'm just going to give you a little tidbit. If they start to shut down your internet and we're not able to get to you, well, there's something called American ingenuity. We found a way around it. So they could do whatever they think they're going to do to block us or other outlets from getting to you. Well, we have a way to do it. And that's why I say, Dave, there's a God above, boy. He gives you wisdom, and
Yeah,
you can't find a way, he will.
yeah.
So fear not, folks. Fear not. We're not going anywhere. They could shut Facebook down, this book down, that book down, but our goal is to shut them down. And they
Yes.
will be shut down within the framework of the law. I always add that, within the framework of the law. Which leads me to this. I have the audio. I won't play it tonight. Maybe we'll do it in a couple of weeks. I have the audio of that police chief. I think his name is Bell,
Yes.
where he was asked a question by a reporter. And I want the Americans to listen to this explanation, and then I'll have the audience in a few weeks listen to it out of his own mouth, where the police chief actually said that the people who were at the rally protesting and they're gone, he's going to identify them, and basically he's going to come to get them. It sounds like he's going to hunt them down. That's what it sounds like to me. But what troubled me, Dave, is he said that we will go after them, we will identify them, and we will charge them, and we will prosecute them, and we will take their money. What he missed as a police professional is, what are you charging them with? What is the crime that they committed? And we're going to use that audio, folks, just so you know this. We're still putting together a package that we're sending to the International Association of Police Chiefs, and we're going to use that audio and send that to them. And Dave, I said this all along. I'm asking them to do an evaluation, to do an inquiry, and to weigh in on it. They probably won't, but we'll give them the shot. But that doesn't prevent an inquiry or an investigation from being conducted. Another thing I want you to think about, folks, if the IACP doesn't look into this, then by all means, we do have a method and a way of, at the very least, doing an inquiry, of putting this information together, and then publicizing what, to me, would be one of the most disastrous documents that the public could receive on any police agencies on the face of the earth. Because what I saw there, Dave, and you shared with me, and other police professionals saw, what an outright unleashing of what looked like paramilitary stormtroopers, for goodness sakes. I'm not painting this a picture of every cop there. We love the Canadian police. They do great jobs. They put their lives on the line like millions around the world.
Yes.
But those individuals, those cops that abused their power and went too far, they need to be dealt with, and their supervisors and police chiefs need to be dealt with. Dave?
Yes. Well, a couple of hours ago, I actually sent you a video, and he's being questioned by politicians about whether they found firearms, and so you can have a look at that one. But that's interesting.
Well, let's talk about that, Dave.
I don't know much about it, except that there was presumption. The same thing about they did that with the Coots thing. Is there weapons involved? Well, they have to sort of mention it, and people think, well, gee, it was a peaceful protest. They have no need for guns. So one of the things that they said was, did you find any? And then he had to kind of concede that he hadn't found any, that they're still investigating. Well, you'd think surely by now you'd know whether there was or wasn't weapons present. So it sounded like a big smokescreen to me.
He lied. He lied. He couldn't tell the truth. That's another. We're going to see if we can get a way to put these videos up, folks. Now, here's a guy who's supposed to be a deputy police chief. Was that a senator or a parliamentary member?
I believe that was a member of parliament. I
Okay.
believe that was, it's either,
Okay.
That's what it looked like to me.
For the sake of the Americans, because we're used to our politicians lying to us, the parliamentary member is asking this police chief, did you confiscate firearms at any of the protests? In fact, the parliamentary member was pretty specific. Did you confiscate any firearms out of trucks? and
Yes.
cars that were at the protest. And this chief, this police chief, he sounded like a typical politician. He went
Yes.
on to talk about, well, we haven't charged anybody, we haven't done this or done that, and again and again and again, Dave. I think a half a dozen times he was asked simple yes or no question:
Yes.
Did you confiscate any firearms? And
Yeah.
finally, like you said, really quiet and fast. No, we didn't. And then he went on
Yeah.
to his political
Yeah.
speech. So
Yeah.
my point, Dave, is this: these people, I don't like to use language, some language on the air, but I've got to, I've got to break my vow a little bit. Donald Trump once said that it's not that we're so smart, it's that they're so stupid. And in this case, to me, this was a dumb answer. And the stupidity that shows through some of these Canadian leaders, as well as American leaders, stupidity is not discriminatory, is just astounding. But is an insult to the intelligence of people from all walks of life to lead us to believe that they're telling the truth. Well, I've always said, if you're a member of Parliament in Canada, stand up, be truthful to yourself, because one day you got to look at your kids and grandkids in the eyes, because they're going to see all of this. They're going to see it all, folks. It's there on a shelf forever for generations to see. And they're going to know that either you are someone who's upstanding, who's done things according to law, or you're a liar and you did things for yourself.
And one of the things I was going to mention too, one of the concerning bills that's in there in the House right now, and it's about the universal basic income. They want to do an absolute universal basic income, and it could be as much. It depends on region, because there's different economies in each province, but it could be as much as $85 billion a year, which is double what we spend on health. Now you have to realize we're less than a tenth of the size of the U.S. So 85 billion is a huge number for a country with 38 some odd million. So imagine that for a minute. So we're going to pay people to stay at home. How would we then hire people? How would we hire people for an entry level job? Why would you go? Why would you go and take a job when you get $2,000, perhaps $2,000 a month to stay home? So what's that going to do to business? The 200,000 businesses that shut down because of COVID, because of the regulations and what the government did. So what about the rest now? What are those people going to do for employment? You can drive through our town, you can find signs that say hiring, we're hiring, inquire within. So the people are desperate to hire people, but how are they going to do that with a universal basic income? I think people have to look at what the bills are and read it. Just read the what the understanding. Like, there's basically a brief of it, a summary that you could use. Read the executive summary of it if you don't want to read all 66 pages. You'll get the essence of it.
Dave, we actually are living through that nightmare here. We have what they call stimulus checks.
Yes.
These were checks given to people all over America to help them. Well, it's not only helping them, it's caused them never to go back to work. I could tell you, my wife and I and others, we go into stores here. There's nobody working. You can't get help. Just yesterday, the day before, I go into a supermarket. I come out, there's a woman with a sign, please help me. I have 4 kids. No work, please give. Well, behind her are, like you said, there's 10 signs, open for business, need to hire, etc. It's all about, again, communism and socialism. Control of your life, from your religion to your homes to your jobs. We're going to take care of you, folks. Believe me. No, folks, they're going to take care of themselves. So you're right, Dave. They need to look at that carefully and begin to address that. Now, somebody wrote something on here a little before, and it's something I want to pick up with you. And by the way, the Honorable Brian Peckford's his name?
Yes,
Brian
Peckford, yes.
Yeah, he's going to be on next Thursday night. What a guy. I mean, what a job. And,
awesome.
Dave, I want to share with the people, you and I were speaking, and you were telling me it's like me sitting down with one of the signatories of the Constitution of 1776. Right. So my question to you, Dave, is this. I don't look that old, do I?
No, you don't look that old. No, you don't. But I mean, imagine if you're going to court on something that was with your Constitution, and you had one of the writers, signatories, sitting next to you. That's what's going to happen when Brian Peckford goes to court. So
I'm excited. Awesome. I'm excited.
It's exciting,
which means to me, and I don't believe I'm overexcited about this, but you're right. I could imagine the people challenging a law with John Adams coming to court and testifying on behalf of the people. I mean, those judges, what in the world are they going to say when Brian Peckford walks in and testify. What are they going to say?
Well, not only that, like what's important about the law. So when you're sitting in court, it's about the law and how it's interpreted. But also, don't forget he was there writing it, so he would have his notes. He would have every speech that he delivered in the Hansard. So the Hansard is the record of what was spoken in the House. So it would be because he was a premier of Newfoundland. I'm presuming that in Newfoundland there'd be a record, so he could tell what the intent was when they were getting this in, because it took him like almost a year to make it. So if you think about that now, so they could actually, that guy's going to be sitting in court, and they're going to be a Supreme Court judge making a decision on it. But here's the guy that has all the information. It's going to be incredible.
You know, Dave, that's the word, the key word, and you just talked about it, intent. No one on the planet knows what the intent
No,
was
more
except
than
the
him.
guy who wrote the law.
Exactly.
Wow, that's
It's going to be
exciting.
awesome. Yeah,
You
it is.
guys in Canada, you're exciting. Listen, I know there's a lot of dark days and a lot of valleys to go through. I mentioned it, but what mountaintops you guys are reaching. I mean, you're teaching the world something that we would have never learned about. And I'm talking about the way to protest, the way to address issues in a peaceful manner, the way to work around these draconian laws, the way to really send these tyrants into the ash bin of history. Many people, Dave, had told me, they're weeping, literally weeping. They're losing sleep at night. They're distressed. Well, folks, know this. Know this. You don't think Trudeau and the people backing him are weeping at night, are worried, are scared to death? They see what's happening around the world. And I want to share it, and I'm going to be very strategic on how I say this so it's not misinterpreted. The people of Canada have taught the world how this can be done. It's a fight, all right? But there'll be victories, there'll be some losses, but they're going to win the war. You're teaching people how to do this within the framework of the law. And every time you do it, the government has to make up some story as to why they're going to arrest people, get their money, etc. They're liars, and they'll all get caught. But here's my point. What Trudeau has to worry about, what Biden has to worry about, especially here in America, you'll figure out why when I tell you what I'm about to say. They have to worry about this thing that they're doing getting so out of hand that they're no longer going to meet up with peaceful people. We never want to see that happen here. God forbid it happens here. And you could pretty much know why I'm really saying I don't want to see it happen here. I don't want to see it happen in Canada. I want to see transition in governments peacefully within the framework of the law. But what happens is these tyrants push people, push them, and before you know it, it gets out of control.
Yeah.
So we have a double job, Dave, right? We have a couple of jobs here to address the issues within the framework of the law, but ensure that the people are listening to and following credible people, intelligent people, people who are passionate like you, but people who are willing to say, look, let's do this strategically and within the framework of the law. What I see happening in France, Germany, and other countries is scary. A lot of people around the world becoming very violent, and we don't want that. And we don't want it for this reason, right, Dave? Our kids, our grandkids are going to see what we did in our time. Would you kind of expound upon this, the importance of this?
So we want to remain on the right side of the law. It's so important because the people that are breaking the law is really, it's going to be government. Like there's a section here, and I will just refer to it. So all of the mandates, and I didn't get into this last time, but all of the mandates and guidelines, I won't call them legislation because in fact they weren't. But it made people think that I have to follow these rules. I have to wear a mask. I have to do this social distancing. But there's a section in that. This is our Constitution from 1867. It's Section 52 when it says the Constitution of Canada is the supreme law of Canada, and any law that is inconsistent with the provisions of this Constitution is to the extent of the inconsistency, no force or effect. So that means all of those laws, anything that's not in the charter, is of no force and effect. So all of these things, these people that are getting these tickets and fines, they're getting thrown out because they're not going to try them in court because they're wrong. And the other thing I was going to mention, you know how we have this cancel culture thing going on? I presume that it was something that's fairly new. I think it's been going on a lot longer because I was looking at our coat of arms for Canada, and it's on our Supreme Court. It's all our signage has our coat of arms, and there's some Latin words in there, but it really means. So it's our motto. So it's actually, if you read it, it means it's based on Psalm 72:8. It says, "He shall have dominion," meaning to rule, also from sea to sea and from the river unto the ends of the earth. So they took scripture when they founded in 1867. They put that on our coat of arms. So we have to be comforted that they're talking about God. Our country is
Yes.
formed on God. So he has dominion. So right now Trudeau thinks he has dominion. But no, we have to stay within the framework of the law, and like you say, peaceful, and we're going to be winning. And I think people should be encouraged because there are many people standing. You would be surprised what you can stand up to. You would be surprised when you're up against the wall because you. What are your choices? Leave or stay and stand. And we don't have to fight. We just have to stand.
So well said, Dave. You know, you're right. We have the sword of the Spirit. We have God's
Yes,
word. I've always said that freedom and liberty is a gift from God to people that He created. No man, no government will ever be able to take that freedom and liberty away. Dave, I had some of the American people email me, and one guy suggested that he'd like to rent a private plane, fly a big giant banner on the U.S. side of Niagara Falls, and send a message to Trudeau. He could do it. I said, you could do it. Trudeau can't do nothing to you. You're in U.S. airspace. The
well,
other idea I talked to you about, and of course, you know, Canadians without getting the jab, they can't come here yet. But where I'm at, thousands, I mean, thousands of Canadians come down to the shores of New Jersey and south. So we're thinking of holding a giant rally as soon as you guys are able to cross the border here. Imagine having 1,000 Canadians at a rally on the beach here, giving Trudeau our 2 cents. 1,000 Canadians with maybe 3,000 or 4,000 Americans. Man, that would
that'd
be
be great.
exciting.
That'd be great.
but,
Yeah.
but 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 the point is, folks, these are things that can be done, and I bring these up because these are the things that they fear. And I want to get to, as we wind down, I want to get to this point of fear, Dave, because you brought up the Bible, and man, what a comforting book.
It is. Yeah.
Our president, Franklin Roosevelt, said something that will live in it forever in the minds of people worldwide. There is nothing to fear but fear itself. Before he said that, Jesus Christ said, "Fear not, for I am with thee."
Yeah.
The word fear, all the government can really do is instill fear into people to get them to a point where they be paralyzed. But Dave, you said something I never heard before. And I'll tell you what, you taught me something tonight. And I'm glad you said, and I'm going to think about what you said. You said we don't have to fight. All we got to do is stand.
Stand. Well, Ephesians
Stand.
6, if you look at putting on the full armor of God, you know, what do you do after you put on the full armor? You just stand. We don't, there's nowhere it says go and attack.
Yeah,
Because this is going to defeat itself. This is not all in the natural. It's just this is also spiritual warfare we're going after here. This
it
is
is.
we can't deal with that.
Now,
I
standing
mean,
doesn't mean
through
you don't.
prayer,
Yeah, yeah. Standing
through prayer.
doesn't mean you don't do anything. You pray and you put your faith
Yep,
to work. You
yep.
work within the framework of the law. And finally, and I'm going to talk to the Honorable Brian Pickford next week about this. Finally, Dave, someone wrote on here that they need to change your laws, your Constitution or Charter of Rights. Uh, I was thinking about that. We talked about the right to recall. We could throw anybody out of office we want if we get enough signatures, and then there's an election anytime. And that's something maybe you'll need in your country for the people to petition the government to get rid of these tyrants. But you said there is a mechanism.
So there'd be almost impossible to make a change to the charter just because of the way it is. It's not anything that can be passed, which is a saving for us. The fact that it can't, because if the charter doesn't stand for us, then nothing will. So there's really no reason to open it up. The one thing, like I know people would like to have other things added to it, but it's made it like that on purpose. So you basically need all of the provinces. So basically, 10, call it 14 governments with the federal government. You'd need all of them to be in agreement, and you'd have to have better than 2/3, I think it is. So you'd have to have everybody in agreement to change, make a change. If there's one thing in there that doesn't make sense to me is the notwithstanding clause. And I guess if you're going to ask questions of Honorable Brian Peckford, that's the one I always wonder, why did the provinces push to have that one in there? Because
Hmm.
basically the notwithstanding clause allows them to make a change to do something that's contrary to what the charter says, provided they have two elements. And they've used it before. You know, they've used it in advertising things. You know, there's been cases at the Supreme Court, and it seems bizarre.
Now, Dave, a few people are writing here, and before I let you go, our charter can only be changed by England. Could you expound on that?
Well, to my understanding, the Queen signed it, but she's more of a figurehead. I don't believe it's the case. I've heard that as well, but I don't believe. Like, I'm not an expert, but from the information that I have, that would not be something that was signed by England. It would the Queen was basically a figurehead. She came here in '82 to sign it. actually. One thing I was going to mention to you is that, people are concerned, and I want to be encouraged because, this will go through the courts. It'll go through the higher courts. And I don't know if you remember the Omar Khadr case. I'll just give this as an example. If you remember Omar Khadr, he was the guy that was at Guantanamo Bay back in '04 or whatever. He killed an American serviceman. He was a Canadian, but you might remember he was a
Yep.
youth. Okay, so they actually went to the Supreme Court, and it was the prime minister at the time in 2010, which would have been Stephen Harper, I believe, versus Cotter. And basically, the case was that his rights were violated because they interrogated him when he was sleep deprived. So because they did that, they said that they violated his rights. We know through all of this COVID, our rights as Canadians have been violated all over the place, but they gave him relief. And the thing that's encouraging to me is in that decision. Now, I'm not saying I'm not going to make a decision about Omar Khadr. What I'm just going to say is about the law. And it says here that the executive, which is the prime minister, is not exempt from constitutional scrutiny. So Justin Trudeau knowingly is breaking the charter. He knows he's doing it. He said as much. And way back when, he gave Omar Khadr $10.5 million. And he said, well, we can't break a person's human rights. We broke his human rights. He's done that to the whole country. So I guess the question that I have, I mean, the encouragement that I have for Canadians is that this will get resolved. It's just that we have to be patient. And I saw the frustration, and I saw the people that, or listened to the people that were contacting the truckers through the Zello app, and they were thanking the truckers. They said, we can only hold on as long as we can hold on. We're just barely holding on. This has been unbearable for 2 years, and you have no idea the amount of suicides and things like that. So people are clinging on. It was an emotional time to see the truckers going there for fighting for us. And what you have to know is that eventually this is going to get sorted out, and be encouraged because good people standing up. I mean, you can't
Yes.
hire a lawyer anywhere. Government's got them all on retainer. All the provincial, federal, all health authorities, school divisions, they've all hired, and so we can't as individuals. And I'm not a lawyer, but sometimes we're going to have to step up and we're going to have to do our bit. We might be involved in legal cases. We might have to. We might have to
Well,
help any way we can.
and we will too. The American
Yeah.
people, believe me, are now aware of what's going on, and we're going to continue to get the word out. We're going to stay on this and pound and pound and pound Trudeau and his government every single week. Dave, thanks for joining us. Will you come
Yeah.
on again
Thank you.
sometime in the near future?
I will. It's been a pleasure. Thanks
Thank you.
again.
Thank you. God bless you.
Yeah.
All right, ladies and gentlemen. So there we go. And next Thursday, we're going to have Mr. Honorable Brian Peckard on. Now, a few minutes between me and the Canadians here. To begin with, be encouraged. I'm looking at this now as you were able to make this very, very dark winter, if you will, that your government's given you, into an opportunity for people all around the world to see how change could be done effectively. But as David said, we must be patient, work together, fear not. Yes, we have the sword of the Spirit, God's word. I firmly believe in that. But we have to make sure that we follow that framework. It doesn't mean we sit back and do nothing, but we come together, we work together. I could tell you, I know you're not hearing it in Canada. We're not hearing much of what's happening there here, other through these social media outlets. But I could tell you, this situation in Canada is now steamrolling to a point where you have members of the European Union Parliament speaking out against Trudeau. If you think that your friends and yourself are a little nervous and worried, well, you could be sure Justin Trudeau's worried. And as soon as the people who are backing him, and I'm talking about the politicians who follow him and support him, begin to hear, and they're hearing loud and clear, not only what Canadians are saying about their country, but about what the world is saying, there's your game changer. Be patient. Be patient. That's a tough road to go. But when Moses went to the Red Sea, remember this. He went to the Red Sea after he traveled many, many, many months, years, if you will, bringing the people out of Egypt away from a powerful army governed under the Pharaoh. They're at the Red Sea, and the people were saying, we're going to die. They're going to kill us. You brought us to the Red Sea. What did Moses do? Like I said last time, I looked upon the hills whence my help came. He looked up and he raised the staff, and look what happened. The sea was split. the Israelites, the Israelis, and Moses went through. And then when the Egyptians pursued, like the tyrants named Trudeau and Mussolini and Hitler and others pursue you, you stand. You do what David said, stand and let God do his work. I believe that, folks. That's why we're here today. Those gifts of freedom and liberty, no man on this earth will ever be able to take because they're gifts from God. That's it, folks. So listen, I'll be on Monday night, same time, 7 o'clock. We're going to be addressing the disastrous situation that Joe Biden got us in here in America. And the next Thursday night, boy, what a great night that'll be. I'm excited to have the Honorable Brian Peckford on. And so please spread the word, share this video if you will. And also, we've encouraged people to email us through our website, campaign4america.com, campaign4america.com. We're going to start sending out intelligence reports, but even more importantly, we have your email. If they start to shut things down, we can still communicate with you. So that's it, folks. Thank you so much. God bless all of you. Be encouraged, all right? You know, Dave said that word a few times tonight. Be encouraged. This is an opportunity to show future generations of Canadians and Americans and young people wherever you live how we, in our time, let freedom ring. God bless you all. Have a great evening.